Welcome to It's Your Move, a weekly podcast where we talk about the ever-changing world of work
Finding satisfaction in what you do.
and laughing through it all as you figure it out. Because wherever you are, it's your move. Good morning.
Good morning, Liddy. How are
Welcome
you
back.
today?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Had a good week. I'm glad you're back in town.
Yeah, I was out of town for a wedding, which was very fun. We were in Virginia,
Okay.
which I've been to D.C., which is, I know, not technically Virginia, but
Yeah.
I have been to Virginia Beach once, but
Right. And did you see any of the historical sites while you were there?
not really. We went to the art museum.
Oh, yeah. I'm
Um,
a big museum lover now. I
yeah.
wandered through a couple of ours and I keep forgetting what great places museums are.
I know, and the art museum was free. And it was so nice because you could see a bunch of people watching. Like you could see there were like big groups that were getting ready to go to prom because yesterday was Saturday when we were leaving. So
Oh, nice.
it was cute, and you could see like we were in Richmond, so and I don't really know what Richmond is all about, but it's the capital. So I was like, well, sure, this is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. It was cool to
Good.
see just a different city.
Good.
I don't want to dog Richmond in this video, so I won't.
Yes, no, don't do that.
No,
Every
Richmond
place has
rules.
its beautiful spots,
Yes.
but nothing's as beautiful as this.
St.
I
Pete Beach.
mean,
I know, seriously. This is
Yeah.
the power of manifestation.
it is.
And how was
It's
your week?
Nothing major personally, but I did have an interesting visit to a college campus this week. And I was part of an event that they had where the business students put together research projects. And I got to judge the research projects. And I thought that was very interesting. I did it as a networking kind of opportunity to see what other people I could meet there and potentially make some more connections. And I ended up just having such a great time talking with the students. It's just so interesting to hear what they're talking about. So
That is interesting. How did you even find out about this?
I found out about it because I get some emails from their career services because of the work that I do. I thought that was a good idea to have some connection. And so that's how it came up. And I thought, oh, well, this will be an interesting experience. And it really was. What was so cool about it with young people, which is a lot of what we're talking about here, is that, they're really talking about what is the future going to look like, as they come out of school. And some of them are still a couple years away, but really, really insightful stuff. And a couple people built models that I think will be really interesting with AI and then what they can do with that model in business. So it really was like just really impressive from what are they thinking about the future. So I know you work with students around that age. What are you seeing just from what they're saying about the future in business?
Yeah, they're all, they're just all very confused. And I think we've touched on that a lot in here, is that a lot of people feel really lost right now. And not because, AI is any specific way, not really. It's more just the uncertainty of all of it.
Yeah.
I think that everybody's kind of grasping at straws of trying to figure out what's actually consistent right now. I feel like that's kind of the thing that is scaring the most people. And I remember you talking to me about this, that in Mick and I's lifetime, so much has changed, like more changed in our lifetime than ever did in your lifetime before that.
Right.
With the invention of the computer, the iPhone,
Internet,
everything. And now AI. Right. And I think that these young people have already seen so much change throughout their lives. They're all just looking for just a little bit of normalcy and a little bit of consistency. And I think that kind of gets us into our topic for the week, which this week we're talking about something that I have defined. I'm sure it's definitely out on the internet somewhere, but the comfort culture, or culture of comfort, that we're really seeing a rise of right now. And I even see it through social media trends. The big thing on the internet right now is, kind of getting into, they're calling them like grandma hobbies, getting into like cross stitch and playing mahjong and going to bed early, reading, things like that, that they're calling them grandma activities, but it's more just fun hobbies that people are getting really interested in. But I think it's also kind of a testament to where the world is turning to. It's like we're almost reverting back into these older ways. Like we're trying to act like our grandparents almost for this. It's that comfort, it brings that sense of comfort that is not here anymore.
I saw a study that Gen Z wants to go back in time. Like they want it like it used to be and simpler and all those things that you're talking about.
Yep.
The different hobbies and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think, so much is written now about getting enough sleep and all of those things from a health standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So it does make sense that we're kind of moving away from hustle culture, which was really how I came up in business, to more of the comfort, but it is also a balance, and that's where I feel like the pendulum just keeps swinging as it always does on this kind of stuff. But I think there's good in there that younger people are saying, I mean, I'm just not going to do it that way.
Right.
But then it gets to the whole question of, okay, well, then what is work going to be like? And what's this all going to look like to put together your work and your hobbies? And
And I think that's really what people are the most confused by right now is like, what is the work world going to look like? And I didn't define it before, so I'll define it really quick. When I talk about the comfort culture or culture of comfort, what I think about is this kind of people reverting back into their comfortable, the things that make them comfortable, not pushing themselves outside their comfort zone because the world is already so uncomfortable. So, I think that back in the day, it was like work and home life was pretty steady and consistent for the most part. You had your group of friends, you had your communities through church and organizations, things like that. And then now that everything is changing constantly all the time, we have this inundation of information. Everybody is constantly wanting the hustle culture. They're wanting to move up and grind, be better, working out harder, doing all these things that I think now people are getting less and less comfortable with pushing themselves outside their comfort zone.
Because you get out of practice.
Yeah.
When you don't do it. It really is habit building when you think about it. And it's easy to, in these times, for sure, to go with the comfort. And you need some of that, which is, how you balance your time and put together all the different parts of your life. But when it comes to work, it can get easy to avoid that entire question. You're busy in your comfort zone, whatever that is, and so you're not pushing yourself out. And that was one of the things that came up with the students, was that they had to present. There was a format to this. There was a judging. They had to put together these presentations, and that was all hugely out of all their comfort zones. And especially a lot of the ones that you could see that were introverts that had to really step into this. And with each one, anybody I talked to, I tried to give them credit for taking the initiative and doing it, because I know how hard that is. And to create something is hard. Luckily, they still, in college, still have advisors and things that can guide them, right? But they had to make it all up and then present it and kind of offer it to the world. Like those skills that people are learning.
Yeah, totally. And I think that it was very natural to have to do. I think back when you were growing up and when we were young, it was very natural to have to push yourself outside your comfort zone a little bit. And because we didn't have as many distractions to make it so that we don't have to push ourselves. So that's really, I think, where the rise of the comfort culture has come from, is we have this constant distraction to us at all times. We don't have this ability to just like sit there and have to deal with the uncomfortable feeling. We have the ability to constantly check your phone, go on social media, do something that distracts you from whatever uncomfortable feeling you're having. So, even with these kids' presentations, it's like, I talk all day about procrastination and staying motivated. I'm sure when you're building a presentation, it's so uncomfortable to have to think about presenting it in front of somebody judging you, getting feedback, having to receive that feedback and take it and run with it. And, are they going to like it? And I think that when you're going through all of those questions in your mind, it makes you like, oh, you know what, just forget it. I'm going to go on my phone. You know what
Right.
and I think that, again, back in the day, you could distract yourself with like some random activity or whatever,
Music.
something.
Yeah.
But even still, your brain couldn't wander that far off.
No, and you were still in the flow and creating something. And I think that's with these business students and things that I've been hearing about AI and the future of work, being able to create and put yourself out there and be in that discomfort. That's where the value is going to be as we move forward, because AI is going to be able to handle all the mundane things. So it's a really cool thing that it will give you the time to pursue the things that you really want to pursue. But like, that's going to mean creating. And they're talking about, like, for the future of business, that it's going to be very entrepreneurial and very much about, what can you bring that adds value to people that they'll pay you for. And that's different than, going and getting a job at a large company. One of these models was really interesting that this person had built, and their dream was to get a job at NASA. So we talked a little bit about, that's an interesting angle, but kind of what else could you possibly do with this now that you've created it that might be more entrepreneurial, that might be working with a startup. Like, they're saying that in the future, if we don't start up our companies ourselves, that being at like an early stage kind of company is a great place to be, to support the work of the creator.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So because this hierarchical job at a desk isn't really gonna look like that.
Right.
And I don't think most people, even if you're introverted, really wanted that in the first place.
Right.
It's just the way that it all went.
And
I think it's going to be interesting to see how we can break this down a little bit into what's really going on.
Right. And I think that there's a lot of people that have gotten into a comfortable job, maybe a desk job, work from home job, a job that they're very well liked. They know what they're doing for the most part. And I know firsthand how hard it is to leave something like that. It's like, if you finally find a job that's pretty consistent and you're, again, you know what you're doing, people look to you for guidance, it fulfills this need in you of, it's like that self-actualization. It's like, I'm needed in the work that I do, and it makes you feel good.
Right. But
But
even if you think about that, that's such a great point, because you push yourself out of that comfort zone. But even that comfort zone required you to push yourself, because you were dealing with clients every day. And also, the future of this is the things that we're doing to help other people. We're going to be working with other people and building those relationships and making those connections and all of that. So that's where I think it is interesting. And we've always talked about it together. Staying close to the client is always going to be a good place to be.
Right.
That's what business actually is.
Right.
Or, even if it's a hospital, it's a business, right?
And I
always
think
keeping that guest mindset and
client
mindset.
I think people kind of lose that in these kind of back end jobs. But I see a shift of, when your goals shift and when your life starts to shift, you stop really. It's almost like you stop caring about the actual work a lot of the time. And it's more the, how is this fitting my lifestyle? So I've seen a lot of people that have left to get work from home jobs. And even right now, I'm feeling the pull of a work from home job, because I'm like, what am I doing? I mean, gas is so expensive. I'm driving out to this place every day, and I have to stay such strict hours. There's no flexibility. I have stuff I could be doing at home. It's all these thoughts that I'm like, this work is not necessarily fitting my life. But kind of going back to the comfort culture, is getting a work from home job the thing that's actually going to fulfill me and be the right thing for me? Or is it just the comfortable thing? That leads me to a question, which is, do you have any advice for people who are feeling the sting of their job right now and are feeling like, oh my God, I'm working way too hard for too little money. I'm going to get a work from home job because it's just what's easier, or it fits my lifestyle better. Do you have any advice to that? Do you think that that's good or bad? What would you say?
Well, I think what's become interesting as I work with companies and trying to help them fit the right people in the right jobs is you almost can't get a job that doesn't fit anymore because in the interview process, it comes through that you're just trying to get a job. So I think it is a good time if you're having those feelings to step back and kind of reflect on, okay, who am I and what am I actually looking for? Work from home isn't a job. That's just maybe a lifestyle, but even if your office is in your home, and I remember the early days of friends of mine that worked from home, they would lock themselves in a bedroom for the entire day. I mean, you're working from home. You still send your kids to daycare or whatever, which I do know a lot of work from home people that still, so you still need the structure of all of that. So I think it's not so much where the job is, but it's more like, what is the work that I'm really trying to do? And that's why the changing work world is so interesting, because you can't really, unless it's a profession that's also changing, the business world, you have to constantly be looking at, okay, well, where is this going? And then where do I fit in it? And so I feel like it's very much an inside job to figure out and then to decide, okay, then what kinds of opportunities am I going to go after? And then those are definitely going to be tied to your network and who you know, and they know you, so that you're not going in there selling yourself on a job just because it's work from home. You know how you're going to have to put all those pieces together that may ultimately be a work from home job, but you're going to have to go through a process to do the interviewing and like really sell it to yourself before you're selling it to a company.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, right. You have to kind of make the work make sense in your own mind.
Like, you're the first person that you have to sell this to. And, that's a hard thing, because we talked about it, finding strength in hard choices. There's just trade-offs in everything that you go to do. Right. So doing that yourself, doing that with a partner, like a coach, guide, whatever, you have to own that for yourself. That's your first order of business from a work perspective. Now, from a life perspective too. But if you don't get the work part right, the rest doesn't work. So
now let me challenge your thought for a second with this thing that I've seen kind of a lot of younger people say, which is that when you say if you don't get the work part right, then none of it really falls into place. And I talk to a lot of young people who say, I don't have a dream and I don't care about really the work that I do. All I really care about is that it fits the life that I want to live. Like they don't like, I think that people are more passionate about their personal lives and are more passionate about being happy and having their work fit their lives. So,
we were questioning too. I mean, I always say to my Gen X friends, like, don't you remember being in your 20s? Like,
right.
We weren't like, oh yes, we have this figured out and we're on a great path. We all were like, what am I even doing right now?
Yeah, totally. And I think that, do you think that the passion kind of comes along the way as people start to get into their first jobs?
I think it's truly, the passion comes from you deciding and telling yourself the story of why what you're doing matters. And I mentioned it before, but looking back on it, I think what matters is the people that you're working with every day. And like, they're becoming part of your life. They're woven into your life. Maybe not everybody personally, but a lot of them in your 20s, because it's after college and you're all figuring it out together. So, and the passion thing, I think is overblown. I love the idea of that, but I don't really know many people that are so passionate about banking that they, just that's the only thing they ever wanted to do. Like, eventually you figured it out, like what in there was what you were passionate about. But back to me, all the clients, the entrepreneurs, what are their stories, my coworkers, all of that. But like, you can't script that. All you can do is do that. You have to decide whatever this opportunity is that you're going toward, how it's going to fit in your whole plan for your next step. You don't have to have your next
10
40 years
right?
mapped out, you know?
And I don't think that it's a bad thing to derive motivation and passion for your work from money. We've talked about this in our Disney podcast about, do what you love and the money will follow, or pursue your
Right.
dream. It's like, well, maybe
Right.
the dream is to have a lot of money. And when you work with, it's like, I think a lot of people in banking, with the amount of money that you make, you can derive some purpose. It's like, okay, well, I guess I'll find some purpose in this. And really, when I think about comfort culture, when I really started thinking about this, I started thinking about it in my mid-20s during kind of the most uncomfortable time of my life. That's when I haven't had a super long life so far, but now I'm in my late 20s.
And wasn't COVID right in there too?
Yes, I was 23 during COVID. I had finished school. And really, I think it was there were a couple of moments that comfort culture kind of crept up on me, which was that I had graduated from my undergrad. I had started working for Disney. COVID hit and the world was super messed up. And I was still at my kind of good Disney job. And I was like, you know what? I can't take the uncertainty of the world right now. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get my master's. And I think I remember seeing this video on Instagram, and it was like how you can tell your friend is going through a midlife crisis. And the first thing they said was, yeah, I'm going back to grad school. And it was like, I think that is so funny, because I think that that's really where comfort culture starts early with the decision to go to undergrad, like going to college. It's
right.
like,
it's just the next logical step.
I can't think any deeper about this. I can't think of anything that would work better than this. So I guess I'm just going to go do this thing for 4 years and I'll figure it out in 4 years. Then the 4 years roll along, and my TA for my class right now, I'm talking to her, she's about to graduate. And I'm like, so what's the next step? And she's like, I don't know. I'm going to grad school. I just decided, I can't figure out what's next. So I'm going to go to grad school.
Right.
I'm like, well, what are you going to school for? She's like, my MBA. It's so uncertain going into the workforce when you're finished with school that you're like, well, I guess I'll just get my master's,
Yeah, totally. And you're really just buying time, because I think we keep thinking that if we just kill some time, it'll be better as we go.
Right.
But the fact is, it's just keeps getting crazier. And the more you put off the decision of what you're doing, and telling, I go back to the story lately a lot, especially with Disney and storytelling, is like, you really, just to make yourself do anything, graduate school, whatever it is, like, you have to keep telling yourself the story of why you're doing what you're doing, because that's going to school isn't comfortable either. It's just that somebody else is kind of telling you what to do instead of you telling you what to do. So I think, that might be a perfectly fine plan if that's going to get you to, where you're trying to go. But you have to decide what your story is and where are you trying to go.
Exactly.
Where are you going?
Right. And that's the thing is, I think that there's nothing wrong with buying a little bit of time. I think there's nothing wrong with going to get your master's. When I made the decision to get my master's, was it from a place of the world is really uncomfortable and I don't really know what's next? Yeah, a little bit. But it was also, I have a bachelor's degree in psychology. What am I going to do with that?
Right.
And I hadn't done a lot of research about it. So I was like, well, I guess I can go get my master's,
Right.
So it came from a place of that, but I'm not saying that it's bad to get your master's.
Right.
I just think, like you said, it has to be an active choice that you are making. It's
Right.
not, and I know we talked about this in finding your strength in hard choices, is like going back to school isn't an easy option, but is it going to at least lead you to the next step that you want to take?
Right.
Or is it just, again, simply buying time?
Right.
And I think that if you don't have a passion for it, my master's was super hard. It's not like I just, like for 2 years, I had no free time. We didn't have any breaks.
And you did it while you were working.
Yeah. So that's a big thing, it is a huge trade-off, but did it allow me to again, buy a little bit of time? Yeah, totally.
Well, and I look back on that and I'm like, we did it too, because we were in a training program that they would pay most of the money to get your master's. So we all did. Did we know what we were doing with it? Of course, we all thought at some point we would get out of banking. But also, if we would have told ourselves a better story on that, this probably all would have worked better. But we didn't.
Right.
we had our parents saying, you got to work hard, you got to get a job, you got to pay the bills, you got to, all those things. And those were the stories we could expect of ourselves. We never thought of like having a fulfilling life, really. I mean, we questioned it a little, but we didn't think about it that much.
Well, and I think that the reason that this kind of comfort culture really came about is that back in the day, there was a little bit of a process. You graduate high school, you'd follow the steps, and then when you went through it, it kind of switched because you were the working mom, and my dad stayed home and everything. So like, it kind of started getting a little bit like, wait, the world is changing. And now it's all completely blown up. And it's like both parents are working and you're paying $1 million for daycare. And so I think that that's really where it came from was, and really why I loved working for Disney was when I was done with college, it was a soft place to land. There's no real soft place to land for the most part anymore. Like Disney offered the college program that was almost an extension of college. It was like you're almost living in a dorm and you're working this job, and then you're not going into like this hard workforce that you're having to work 9 to 5, get right into it. It's like it gives you a little bit of a buffer. Again, buying a little bit more time.
It buys time like a lot of things, but it's also a job that you can make your way in that company if you decide that that's what you want to do. So I do think it's interesting, especially because companies have gotten away from like training programs like I had, that there really isn't like that. And I remember when I got into that, I thought, because I had already worked through college, and I'm like, I don't want to just start at some company making copies again. I've already done all that for these different things that I had done. So at least in a training program, you felt like, well, there's possibility to learn things and be promoted and all of that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But a lot of companies either have it or don't have it, or it's not very structured, where like Disney is just a great training ground, if nothing else.
Exactly. And it gets you that work experience. I learned so much from Disney customer service and working with people you don't get along with, working in high stress environments, keeping a positive demeanor all through it all, skills that have really transferred into everything that I do now. So like you said, there's no real training programs, but getting some experience in somewhere, and you can get that from a lot of places, being a server. Like if you don't go into your field right away, it doesn't mean that you're not doing great. It just means that maybe you have to learn some other skills.
Or that you just need to tell a better story and find a job in that career. I mean, I think you can't say you can't find a job. They're there somewhere. You just have to find the right people to connect with. That's where I say, your whole career is just a big scavenger hunt. It's just meeting people. You don't know why you're meeting them. 20 years later, you're working with them. You don't know.
You never know how it's all going to connect.
Right. And that's why I think driving your car, moving your feet is so important, because that gets you out of your comfort zone and gets you seeing the possibilities. But if you're not in motion, you can't see the next thing, because you can't see it from sitting still. So I think that's where it's going to be interesting to see how this comfort culture goes. Because I mean, there's great things about it, but also I think it's going to be our jobs as guides to push and pull people. We don't just need people that are like, oh, that's so wonderful for you that you're crocheting all the time. Like, that's good. That's great. But like, if you're gonna, and I hate to say even the word support your family, if you're gonna make money, you've got to find work that works for you and adds value to other people. And that all is uncomfortable. It just is.
And you know what? My least favorite type of person is somebody who is like, nope, that's just the way that life is. That's just the way that it's going to be. And I think those are the people that have gotten so stuck in the comfort culture. They are so far down into the hole of being so comfortable that they literally can't even begin to figure out how they would climb themselves out. Those are the people that I think it becomes harmful to spend your time with a lot of people like that, because it's like, if they're like, nope, I just can't do this, and this is just what I'm destined to be, my life is just going to suck. And I'm just not meant to like my work. I'm just not meant to live this really awesome life.
Right.
I've met so many of those types of people on my path, and I've had to just do like oh, okay, thank you.
Right.
Yeah, have a good one. Like,
yeah.
It's not that they didn't offer value to my life or value to my path, but at a certain point, if you want your life to be bigger, if you want to push yourself and you want to live an exciting life that you're constantly changing and growing and everything, you can't surround yourself with people like
No.
that, because they're just gonna, my mom uses this analogy of the crabs in the bucket. It's like, there's all these crabs in a bucket and one is trying to crawl its way out and the other ones are just grabbing at it, pulling them back down. It's
Right.
like you can never get out of the bucket.
Right.
Of all these people in your life that are constantly dragging you back
And it's
down.
totally fine to be in the bucket. Like, if you want to be in the bucket, that's great. Like, we're trying to build something ourselves so that we find more of the crabs that climbed out of the bucket and are like, oh my gosh, all right, now what are we doing?
Right, exactly. And those are the best types of people to me, because there's this like sense right now of everybody's kind of got it figured out, when in reality nobody has it figured out. And I think the ones in the bucket are like, we've got it all figured out. It's in there, just in their cozy little bubble of, well, I don't love my job, but this is my life, and I'm not going to make any changes because I don't want to rock the boat, and I'm just going to stay right here. And my favorite types of people are the ones who have gotten out of the bucket and are like, oh my God, I didn't realize that the outside the bucket was so scary, and there's birds flying everywhere trying to eat me. And, it's like, once you're out, it's like, oh my God, but you just can't go back in. Again, it's how you're going to keep them down on the farm now that they've seen Perry. We're going to have to get that on a t-shirt. I think that was a huge lesson for Mick and I growing up, was you guys weren't really the people that got stuck in the ways. I think you fell into a couple of the patterns along the way after having kids, and those things are kind of natural. But watching you guys move to Florida and just do this, just go and do this, even if it's hard, just go and do it. It's like, life is not meant to be easy, but that's where all the fun stuff happens. I think that's a good testament to doing uncomfortable things leads to really awesome things. It's yes and in improv. You never know where it's going to lead you. You just got to take the next step and see where it leads.
Right, exactly. And like we talked about before, there's lots of hard parts about that too. Like you said, I mean, your crab's out of the bucket, but the more you do it, the more you're like, oh, okay, I've seen this before, and I know what to do here. But you can't get any of those experiences if you don't ever leave the bucket. Right, exactly. So it also helps that we came from families that were like crabs outside the bucket.
Right, exactly. Right.
So I mean, that's part of who we are.
Exactly. It's immigrants, and it's like entrepreneurs. Everybody. That's, I think, why Angelina and I got on so well together. Is she comes from a family of immigrants, of entrepreneurs, of outside the box thinkers. And I come from that family too. And it's like, we've got to kind of find this camaraderie in each other. It's like, that's where the community is going to come in. We can't shove ourselves into these boxes because that's just not where we fit.
No.
Well, I have a question from the audience, even though the audience isn't here today, which is, this is just a fun question. Have you ever said yes to an opportunity that really pushed you outside your comfort zone, but it led to something so awesome?
Oh boy, that's a good question.
I know, I'm going to think of my answer too. Okay, I have one. You go first.
And I've talked about it before, but it is what has really changed my life is that I met a person on the road that was recommended to me for career coaching. And I went to him, really was like, what does this guy know? What's he going to be able to tell me? But in that process, I learned that that's absolutely the work that I love to do. So if I wouldn't have done that, which was uncomfortable, and ask the questions about my career and what I'm actually doing, I would have never had the experience of doing Myers-Briggs, knowing myself better, building something on the side, always doing work for him. At the same time, I was doing work at the bank, like learning all of those things. That was such a life-changing experience. And it would never have happened had I not pushed myself to go do that and start asking the questions instead of just being like, oh, everything's fine.
I like it. Nice. Yeah. So you never know where a connection is going to come in.
That's
what
right.
I mean. You never know what's going to come up.
Connections that were made through that person and all the things. I mean, it was life-changing.
Yep. I think that's awesome. And I think kind of on a similar note, work related. And this is really one that I think back and I think like how funny it is looking back on the times we push ourselves outside our comfort zone and how often it turns out to be totally the right thing and leads you in the most awesome direction. Was this time last year when I was just Googling jobs in higher education. I found this job that I was going to apply for. I was like, I'm not even going to get the interview. I got the interview and I drove to your guys' house because it was at a school near you. And I remember the night before being like, this is a 4-hour interview that I'm about to have to go into. I have to give a presentation. I have to do all this. It's like, I'm not even going to do it. I was like, I'm just going to skip it. I don't have to do anything. I was like, I'm perfectly fine at my job. I like living in Orlando. Why would I want to shake anything up anyway? It's kind of the feeling that I get when you and I are on the brink of something really awesome. When we come to podcast in the morning and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so tired. I could just work in higher education forever. I don't need to do this. This is way harder than what I'm doing now. So the night before the interview, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to skip it. And then, of course, I'm going to bed and I'm like, well, what if it turns into something? Like, it's probably good experience, whatever. And it ended up being like the best interview I've ever had. Ended up being the most amazing job.
And
totally
so
changed
ties
my
to
life.
everything that you're doing now. And,
Right. But it's
you know,
it's that bargaining that you start to go through when you're pushing yourself outside your comfort zone.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, no, I don't need to actually do this.
Right.
And but that's really when you need to do it the most.
Right.
Is like,
exactly.
all I had been doing for the weeks prior was complaining about how I didn't like my job and how I wanted to pursue something that was more aligned with what I was wired for. And then the night before I was about to throw it all away just because I was like, you know what? Like I actually can be fine with what I'm doing now.
I know.
Yeah.
We all do it. Yeah. The rationalizing, probably
Right.
names for all those things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's totally just like,
But yeah.
like, you're about to make it is like when you're on the brink of a huge change and you're like, no, that's okay. I'll let somebody else do
and that's
it.
when you hear the leap and the net will appear.
Exactly.
It's like you have to just
Do
go.
it. Yep.
Just move.
Yep.
It's your move.
Exactly.
You
Like
know, you gotta move.
You gotta move. Right. And I mean, it's in everyday small things too. When we talk about comfort culture, we're not just talking about make a huge career shift and take the leap.
Right.
If I can leave this podcast today with anything, it's just start making yourself uncomfortable a little bit every single day. Whether it's going through the actual checkout line at the grocery store versus the self-checkout and having a conversation with somebody that might be a little awkward. Or when you're at home, not just sitting and scrolling on your phone, putting your phone down for a few minutes and thinking, journaling, being alone with your thoughts, creating something that pushes you. And again, this doesn't even have to be work related. This can be towards your creative passions. Just more to listen to yourself and who you are, but just to push yourself a little bit more and more into the uncomfortable. It's what people say about working out. It's like, when you can get into the routine of exercise and eating well and everything, when you do it just little by little, it makes it so much easier to bear than just one day being like, actually, I'm going to delete all my social media.
Right.
And actually, I'm going to quit my job and do something new. It's like, if you've already forced yourself just really little kind of moments at a time into these uncomfortable situations for yourself, that's what's going to make the biggest difference when it comes time to make a really uncomfortable decision.
Right. Because they all just add up. Most of these changes don't happen in one fell swoop. That's why whenever people talk about AI, it's like, it's here, it's happening, we're in it right now. Like, there's not this thing coming to get us. It's not going to be in one huge change. It's happening now.
Right. Yeah.
And the baby steps that we're taking each day is what's taking us to the future. So I think we just have to remember that that's what progress is.
Yep.
And, there's not going to be some answer that's going to just come to you.
Yep.
You just have to keep taking
doing
the
it.
steps.
Exactly. The emphasis word, and it's your move this week, is move.
Exactly.
Just move, just do, just try things even if it's hard, and it'll all start to unfold. Nothing's going to happen if you're just sitting still. And this is not promoting hustle culture. We are anti-hustle culture. Take care of yourself, be kind to yourself, and listen to your body, everything. And you don't have to work so hard, but you got to put in a little bit of work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So should we wrap it
well,
up?
Thank you. Yeah, this was a great conversation.
I know, awesome. And
So-
back at our favorite place. And
Yeah.
I noticed that every week I'm getting a little bit more tan.
I know. I'm wondering if that's a good thing. Oh well, we're taking it in baby steps.
Exactly.
Week to
Yes,
week.
one step at a time. I know.
Yeah.
That's the thing is, each week that we're posting these podcasts, every time I click the button before I do it, I'm like, no, nobody's watching them.
Yeah.
And nobody even cares what we have to say. All we're doing is rambling the whole time, and we just love to hear ourselves talk, whatever. And then I'm like, you know what? Just do it. Put it out there.
I'm
Push
like, I'm
yourself.
telling everybody, you got to start somewhere. I don't know. And am I open to feedback? No, I am not.
No, I'm not.
I'm starting,
And
it's not, I don't want to hear the criticism.
no, same. Exactly. Yep, it's our first one, so
Yeah.
let's see you do a podcast. Then we'll criticize. It's the man on the stage. It's not the man in the crowd or whatever it is.
It's the man in the arena.
Exactly.
It's not the critic who counts.
Yes.
It's the man in the arena.
Exactly, and we're the men in the arena. So
We
good
are.
job doing
Good
it.
job.
Woo!
All
Nice.
right.
See you next week, everybody.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Good job.
Woo! What a rush. Wow, what a great podcast. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Join us next week. We're going to talk more about the ever-changing world of work because wherever you are, it's your move.